Welcome, one and all, to our City Commission meeting for Monday, February 3rd, 2020. First call to order, roll call.
Commissioner Cunningham.
Here.
Commissioner Hess.
Here.
Commissioner Knott.
Here.
Commissioner Pradle.
Present.
Commissioner Urban.
Here.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Here.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. For our opening ceremony tonight, we have an invocation from Chaplain Liz Candido from Kalamazoo College. Please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Holy One, we gather before you tonight charged with being and becoming the beloved community. Not a model in concept, real community is hard. It means caring for the poor and the disenfranchised just as much as we care for the interests of the rich and powerful. Reverend Dr. King taught us that peace and community requires a reorientation, a qualitative change to our souls. In this room tonight, decisions will be made that will affect the lives of many. May those who wield power do so with an eye toward justice. In times when decisions are hard to make, may God's people err on the side of mercy. When values and opinions differ, may leaders find ways to reason together and extend goodwill. When it seems that resources are few and the needs many, may the people in this room remember that we are blessed with abundance when we each strive for equity. May we believe that we are already being and becoming the beloved community. May that give us the strength to act boldly, err on the side of mercy, and practice justice. May this be what we share with one another. In the powerful name of the one who calls us all. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight we have a presentation from the Central County Transportation Authority. So that presentation will be next here. Are there representatives here for that?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Commission. I want to thank you for this opportunity this evening just to talk a little bit about, give you an update on Metro, the public transit agency for Kalamazoo County. My name is Greg Rosine. I live here in the city of Kalamazoo, and I'm currently the chair of the Central County Transportation Authority. Joining me tonight are two other members of our authority, Gary Lee McCormick and Curtis Ardema. All the three of us are the members that were nominated by the city of Kalamazoo to represent the city in the County Transportation Authority. Our executive director, Mr. Sean McBride, is going to give you a short presentation, just a status of what we're doing in Metro Transit, or in transit in Metro, and our current history, and then we're going to also talk about a millage election that's on the ballot on March 10th. And I'll turn this over now first to Sean McBride to give a presentation. And then we'll talk about the transit.
Good evening, Mayor Anderson, City Commission. Thank you for having us here tonight. We truly appreciate the partnership that we have with the City of Kalamazoo and our long history that we have together. I just wanted to give a brief overview of public transit. Not all of you have heard where we've come from, and just want to give a little background on that. So the City of Kalamazoo started providing public transit to the community in 1967, over 50 years ago. It was a department of the City of Kalamazoo until 2016. At that point, it was transferred to the Central County Transportation Authority that now operates a public transit system for the region. And some people ask, why Why do we make this transition? I think the real key is that the transportation needs of the community are not defined by boundaries. We have educational needs throughout the community. We have housing and retail pockets in multiple cities. And how do you best design and fund a transit system that meets all those needs? So the leaders of the community really work together to design a community transit system that serves all of Kalamazoo County. Today, we're now branded as Metro. You see our red and gray buses out on the road. Hopefully there aren't any, I get some criticism of that looks too much like Ohio State and not enough like the University of Michigan, but I do apologize for that. Our mission is to improve the quality of life in the community by providing public transit services that are dependable, convenient, safe, efficient, cost-effective, and accessible for all. And in 2019, we provided 2.8 million rides. And we did some research, and since 1967, we've provided over 116 million rides to the community. It sounds like a pretty impressive number to me. So why do people use public transit? There's really two key reasons. One is to get to jobs. Number two is to get to education. And we've really seen a growth in people using public transit to get to jobs here in Kalamazoo County. Education used to be number one about 10 years ago when I first started getting involved, and now it's flipped the past few years to getting people to employment. Those that do ride the bus, it's their primary source of getting around the community. 90% of people that we survey don't have access to a car for a variety of reasons. It could be they don't have access to a license, they don't have a ability to get a car. They use it 6 days a week, and the majority of our riders are female. So our major core service is the fixed-route bus system. We provide 2.6 million rides in 2019, and our ridership so far this year is growing, and I'll talk about one of those reasons why in just a moment. So we have 19 bus routes that serve the community. Most start out at our transportation center just down the road. A couple start out of Western, a couple start down in Portage. In 2016, we expanded service to 7 days a week, so Sunday service, and we're seeing exceptional ridership on Sundays, that we've even expanded hours on Sundays. Also in 2016, we expanded hours of service to later night hours, 10 p.m. to midnight during the week, and we see a lot of especially retail workers using that as a key way to getting home and to their jobs. The base fare for the fixed-route bus system is $1.50. If you're a senior citizen or individual with a disability, it's 75 cents to ride. You also have access to a transfer. Other core service is Metro Connect. It's the demand response system. In a lot of communities, it's referred to as dial-a-ride. We provide 168,000 rides in 2019, and we're seeing very consistent growth with Metro Connect, about 4% per year. And just rides provided to Kalamazoo residents last year were nearly 50,000. To reduce fares for senior citizens and individuals with disabilities, it's either $3 or $4 per ride. And the system's available to residents, any resident to go anywhere in the county. Just the fare that you pay is based on, the base fare is $12 if you're not a senior citizen or individual with disability. We also serve one area outside the county. It's the VA hospital in Battle Creek, and we do have tremendous and regular ridership out there. One of the things that we're working on as an organization, working with the community, is bus stops. We have over 750 bus stops in the system. It's quite an investment to keep up on that, and our real goal is to make sure those bus stops are safe and accessible for all our riders. We also want to make sure they're spaced properly to make the system efficient and rideable for our regular passengers. So what makes them safe and accessible is having pads that are big enough to stand on, so you're not standing on a pad of grass, that you if you use an assisted mobility device, that you can, the ramp can lower down and you can get up onto the bus from those pads. And then the other key piece is, and everyone is working on it, the city of Kalamazoo and a lot of the other organizations around town, around Kalamazoo County, is sidewalk connections. Just one other thing I want to point out is that we are working on updating our bus signs. You can see it in the middle there. It's a red sign. And one of the characteristics of the new signs, we're going to try and put more information on there. We'll have a stop number and what routes are served at that stop. A couple of the key partnerships I really want to emphasize. Our first is thank you all, to you all for partnering with us on the Youth Mobility Program, the Foundation for Excellence for funding that program, Kalamazoo Public Schools. So basically the program provides a pass to all high school students in Kalamazoo Public Schools, and they have unlimited access to the bus system. There's been tremendous amount of ridership on it with that program. Our high month was October with about 35,000 rides just in the month of October through that program. A couple other partnerships. One was we're working with the business community. We work with Bronson as one of our key partners. They provide passes to their employees and then work with us on paying for those employees. It's a good way. They have kind of limited space and access for their employees in particular at their campus. So this is a good program for them to encourage their employees to use the public transit system. And then lastly, one other item is emergency operations. We're involved in partnering with the public safety agencies around the community. And for example, last year, I think exactly a year ago today, it was about 70 degrees cooler outside. And the city of Kalamazoo opened up warming stations, and we were involved in helping transport people in need from throughout the community to those warming stations. Another example about a year ago too was out in Oshtemo. Last year there was a train that derailed from the tracks that was stuck out in Oshtemo. We were called in the middle of the night to bring buses out there to transport the individuals stuck on that train to a safe, warm location. So those are a couple of the value-added type services we provide to the community. Just a couple other items as far as transit funding. It's about a $20 million a year operation to provide public transit on an annual basis to the community. We have 4 main sources of funding. Fares account for about 20% of our overall funding revenue. The state of Michigan, with the gas tax revenue, accounts for about 34%. Voter-approved millages account for the other big portion. And then the FTA operating fund account for about 10%. And what we're seeing statewide is public transit funding from the state is decreasing on an annual basis. And so we're looking at the millage to really support our community needs to fund public transit. So on March 10th, we have a millage that's going to be asked of the voters. It's going to be for 0.09 mils. It replaces an existing millage that was approved in 2015. It's a 5-year millage, 2021 through 2025, and the current millage that it's replacing is 0.75 mils. And some people ask, why are you increasing the millage? The main reason is we're not looking to increase service, it's to maintain our existing service that we're providing in the community. And like I just said, what our biggest concern that the board considered was that we are seeing significant decreases in reimbursements from the state of Michigan. A lot of organization, roads, bridges, and public transit are all competing for limited gas tax dollars, and public transit is seeing a decrease. And just this millage is for to fund the fixed route bus system. This map doesn't show up very well, but there's 6 jurisdictions within the Central County Transportation Authority, all of City Kalamazoo, all of Kalamazoo Township, all of Parchment, all of Portage. Most of Comstock and about half of Oshtemo Township are within the boundaries of the CCTA. That's all I have.
I hope you can appreciate, as we do, the importance of public transit. Oftentimes people say, well, it adds to quality of life in a community. I think in our case, it's more than just the quality of life. It's about how people can get to a job, get to health care, get to school. It's a basic utility in our community. As Sean said, we have an election on March 10th, and there's also another election on March 10th. There's a presidential primary that'll be going on in the state of Michigan, and there will be one other item on the ballot in Kalamazoo, and that will be the millage for Metro. you can help us, and that's one of the reasons we're here today, at least the members from the authority, is to seek your help as we go forward with this millage. As Sean said, it was the last millage was in 2015, and state law requires that it can't last any longer than 5 years. It expires. You have to go back out for a new millage. You can help us. You are the thought leaders in this community. People look to you for direction. They look for your advice. They look for you for your nod of the head that, yeah, that's a good idea. That's something that's important. You can talk to the neighbors. You can have strong vocal support for our millage would be important. You can make public endorsements of the millage. We have a Facebook page, as everybody does today. Kalamazoo Citizens for Community Transportation is our Facebook page. You can like our page. You can share our page with all the neighbors and all the friends that you have on your Facebook page. You can send out an email, and I know you have a good email lists to do email broadcast in support of our millage. Again, we think and we're committed that this is something that's just extremely vital to this community. It's one of those things that doesn't just add to quality of life, it helps make Kalamazoo tick. It allows people to get to jobs, get to the doctor, visit family. And at our last election, when we were able to expand our service, and we think that was important. We saw that increase in people going to jobs, and your support would be very beneficial for us on March 10th. Thank you. Any questions you may have, we'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Yeah, Commissioner Knott.
Yes, actually, they're probably more appropriate for Director McBride.
Sure.
Good to see you. Good to see you, Sean. How you doing?
Thank you, Commissioner Knott. Good.
So we, once a month, have neighborhood meetings. We'll have one in 2 weeks on February, I think, well, whatever that, in 2 weeks from today.
Okay.
And we frequently hear from the Oakwood neighborhood about the fixed route that has been eliminated from their neighborhood. Cheryl comes every 6 months when Cheryl's due to present to us. She talks about the fact that there's not adequate access for residents of the Oakwood neighborhood. And I have two more quick points for you. We also hear from Tammy and from Maddie and others when they come to us at their neighborhood meetings that we do have bus stops and there is an enclosure that protects people from the elements, but that for folks that have mobility issues, not necessarily on a mobilized cart like you referenced where they could get on with the ramp, but if you have difficulty walking or you're, again, different abilities, that it's impossible without curb cutouts to get onto the bus without challenges. And then probably a little bit unique from the neighborhood meetings that I've been sitting in for the last couple of years. I hear frequently from folks that live in the southern portion of Edison or Millwood that work out in Portage that it adds an extra hour plus to their commute to pick up a bus on the south side of the city to take it to the transfer station downtown to then go back out to Portage. And for some folks, when they have little kids and they're working an hourly job, et cetera, this adds a lot of burden to their day. Is there a solution so that folks that live the south of the city aren't having to come all the way downtown, traveling north to then go back out south?
Might be tested to remember all those. So I'll take the middle one first on the bus stops and bus shelters. We work with the City of Kalamazoo, City of Portage, or Kalamazoo County Road Commission. When they do projects to refurbish the roads, we work with them to design in stop improvements, sidewalk improvements where possible. Another project that we're specifically working with the City of Kalamazoo is the Community Development Block Grant Program. We've been working with staff for a couple of years now that there are some dedicated funds identified through that program that are going to be partnered with the neighborhood associations to improve stops and shelters within those neighborhoods. So that's being implemented. Not surprisingly, it's more you probably hear this all the time. It's more complicated than you think it is to do stops and shelters because there's limited right-of-way in the community. It's not always flat and easy to work with the land, so we have to take all those things into consideration. Number two, as far as the Oakwood Association, several years ago we did work on the route, the Oakland route. That route did go through the Oakwood neighborhood at that point. Right now it does go down Oakland, it does go down Parkview, so it is very, very well served. I understand their concerns for those in the deepest parts of the neighborhood, that it is quite a walk to access the bus system. There were challenges, though, with bringing a bus through the neighborhood. It is, if you've been back there, it is a hilly neighborhood, and it can be very narrow. So it wasn't the best conditions to bring a full 40-foot bus through there. So that was also a consideration, was the safety concerns there. And then the third question that I space on at this point is,
Sure. The third question got to the fact that folks that live in the city on the southern portion of the boundary have to drive all the way north to downtown to then go back out to Portage, which adds quite a burden to their workdays.
so the system that it's been designed this way since the beginning is a hub and spoke system. So our hub is the Kalamazoo Transportation Center downtown. Everything radiates out of there. The routes radiate out of there at 15 minutes and 45 minutes on the hour, 15 minutes and 45 minutes each hour. All the buses connect at the same time to help facilitate as quick a travel. One of the downfalls, though, of a hub and spoke system is if you're on the outer edges of the hub and spoke, that there's no good connectivity to the other outer edges of the hub and spoke system. There's pros and cons to redesigning it. We'll be looking at the system comprehensively at some point here in the next couple of years of how we can make adjustments. So I don't have a full good answer, but one of the other things is, and what we're trying to improve on those high ridership routes is increase the frequency of the route, so you can catch it more frequently, and hopefully you're not waiting for a half an hour for the next route to come.
No, I appreciate that. There are other larger communities, though, that don't have these challenges. Looking at Grand Rapids, I know that they're on a hub and spoke system as well, but the wait times aren't as significant, and Grand Rapids has a larger footprint than Kalamazoo. And to Oakwood, again, we've been hearing from Cheryl for at least the last 4 years about her concerns related to the fact that the bus, as you referenced, goes down Oakland and over to Parkview. But that, I mean, as a canvasser, that is a huge neighborhood, and there are many, many side streets and cross streets that nobody is, if you're elderly, or again, you have a mobility issue, particularly this time of year, that's a real challenge. And we know that the buses crisscross other neighborhoods. They crisscross all over Western's campus with hills and narrow twists and turns and lots of students crossing. So I think that we should look at Oakwood in particular, because we've been hearing it now. Every neighborhood meeting, we send her your direction, but it's not just Cheryl's voice that we're hearing from.
Thank you, Commissioner Knott. Other questions? Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yeah, just quickly, I just want to know, for riders, are they active participants in your decision-making process as you come up with routes and things like that?
Yeah, as we do major route changes, we do hold a variety of public input sessions. We often do open houses, we do survey riders. We do find the open houses are the best way to get direct rider influence. We haven't made any significant rider changes since we expanded route, or major changes since 2016 when we did expand Sunday service and late night service. So at that point, we did implement a lot of those tactics to get input from our riders.
So is there a way for riders to get a hold of you? I'm just thinking about what Commissioner Knott has spoken to.
Sure.
So is there between 3 years or 4 years now?
Absolutely. There's our public meetings, the second Monday of each month at 11:30. There's citizen time at those public meetings. Our Facebook has place for comments, and there's key staff that are accessible on there. So I'm accessible. A lot of people find me, but if they can't, they can use some of those other tools, and we encourage it. And frankly, that's how we improve service, is hearing from our riders to make it better. That's why we make the changes and the tweaks that we do.
Yes, Commissioner Urban.
I wanted to add my voice to the situation in the Oakwood neighborhood. I've talked with you before about this, and the thing that Aaron didn't mention that I think the public ought to be aware of and I want to remind you about is at one time, the 40-foot buses did go through that neighborhood, and people made decisions to locate or buy property knowing that they would be on that bus route. So that's the source of a lot of hard feelings about that when that was taken away. If it could be done once, and it was done then, why can't it be done now? Did it suddenly become that much less safe? I don't expect you to answer that right now. Sure. But I want to add my voice to Aaron's concern about this. I also know just how complicated it is to change a route. It's much more complicated than the average person is aware of when you think of all the things that have to be balanced. But since this has been such a persistent issue, I hope that you'll take another look at that, even in the interim, before another comprehensive study.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban. Any other commissioners? Just a quick question here. Are you having an opportunity to go to other jurisdictions, Portage, Kalamazoo Township, and make a presentation also?
We are making the rounds of the other jurisdictions. So
Okay,
yes.
great. And then lastly, I just want to recognize just the long-term, thank you, Director McBride, but also that Gary Lee McCormick, who's been serving on these boards for decades, been a passion of his for a long time. Greg Rosine, also a long time. And Kurt Artema, the years are mounting up there for you too, that I've seen you participate in this, so I appreciate that. The only way that a community works is when people step up and volunteer to do the every month kind of work of grappling with budgets and requests and making sure systems stay viable, and that's only done through community input. So thank you so much for your time doing this work. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming tonight. We do have a proclamation tonight. It's for National 211 Day, and Commissioner Cunningham is going to read the proclamation. I'm going to go down to the podium. Commissioner Cunningham.
All right, thank you, Mayor. If Maddie Sella from Griffin Place can make her way down, and as these two individuals make their way down to the podium, I just want to say that 211, the impact in our community can't be measured. I know working for the state of Michigan over at Department of Health and Human Services, oftentimes when we aren't able to assist an individual, we oftentimes send them to 211. So if you get some irate customers, it might be my fault over the years, and I apologize for that, but thank you for the work. Like I said, it can't be valued, and I will go into this proclamation. So, State of Michigan, United States of America Proclamation, National 211 Day, Kalamazoo, February 11th, 2020. Whereas every hour of every day, someone in the United States needs essential services, from basic human needs to securing adequate care for a child or aging parent. And whereas 211 is the national abbreviated dialing code for free access to health and human services, information and referral, volunteer opportunities, and improving the way in which people learn about and connect with the services they need. And whereas Griffin Place, a nonprofit organization established in 1970, provides 211 services via a 24/7, 365 call center accessible to everyone. Calls are confidential and answered with respect, empathy, and compassion. And whereas Griffin Place serves the Kalamazoo community through a variety of programs and services, including suicide prevention and crisis support services, conflict resolution services, 211 information and referral services, and numerous community initiatives. And whereas Griffin Place 211 is a leader in suicide prevention in the area. Griffin Place staff are expertly trained in suicide prevention and are fully certified by the American Association of Suicidology. And whereas Griffin Place 211 online database provides information and the right connections with over 800 agencies and 1,400 programs. 70,000 community members receive assistance annually through 211 service connections. And whereas 211 serves as a support system for emergency management to help disseminate critical information, assist people through disasters, and provide a long-term connection to relief and recovery services. Now, therefore, on behalf of the 53rd City Commission, I, Eric Cunningham, on behalf of the Honorable Mayor David F. Anderson and the City of Kalamazoo, proclaim February 11th, 2020 to be the National 211 Day in Kalamazoo and commend Griffin Place and volunteers for their continued commitment to the Kalamazoo region. You are very welcome.
Wow, we do a lot. Holding my breath. Thank you so much, Mayor Anderson, and to the Commission for providing us with the proclamation of National 211 Day. It means a lot to us. I've been with Griffin Place for 6 years, and I want to say that this is the first time we've received a proclamation in my time, so we are very thankful. We are all doing a lot of work, and we're working really hard to serve our community, to provide access, to provide those supports, but it's not helpful if we don't know where to find the help when we need it. It's already hard to go through our emotional distress and our own challenges to navigate systems. I think you all know it's hard. It's hard to understand eligibility guidelines, hours of operation, applications, and it's so important to have that additional support. And the more people know about 211, the easier it is to navigate services. It's also very, very important for local organizations to know how important it is to have their information in our system, because 211 is only as good as information that's provided to us. So if you can be our champions and remind people of connecting with us, we make changes to local services. We can make one change up to 20 changes a day. We have full-time staff dedicated to making sure that we're providing accurate information. So the more organizations know the importance of updating their information, the better we can provide a service. Something just to be very proud about here in Kalamazoo, Griffin Place is the after-hours provider for over 35 counties in the state. And we are taking calls 24/7 for 11 counties. And this year we just launched 3 counties in Ohio. So now we're crossing states. So we're around 65 employees, and as a whole, we're taking over 100,000 calls between all of our lines. So it's very proud that we're here local. We love our work, but out in other communities, people are looking at Kalamazoo about, you guys are amazing, so we are pretty amazing, and thank you so much for the recognition. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your work. Yeah, thanks for coming down to see us tonight. Commissioners, in front of you, you have the agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any changes you would like to see?
Mayor Anderson,
Yeah, Commissioner
there
Prater.
is on F8, I'll need another abstention tonight because we have an affiliation agreement with Western Michigan University. So I plan to just vote with that and then note my abstention on number 8.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Prater. Anyone else? Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak to any item on the consent agenda? That's anything under F. If so, will you need to ask now. If you want that item moved to the regular agenda, you should be able to speak to it. Any requests? All right, seeing none. Next item is communications. Are there any communications, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain?
I just have one tonight. We sent out a media release earlier today, and we just were proud to announce that Dorla Bonner has joined the City Manager's office as our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Director. So she is starting with us today, hitting the ground running. Was working over in the Community Planning and Economic Development Department as our Community Investment Manager for a number of years. And I think I actually had the privilege of helping to hire Dorla along with Laura Lamb when we were working on the stimulus program when she first came to the city of Kalamazoo. So we are very pleased to have Dorla, and she'll be working on that position. And it was one of the positions that the City Commission approved as part of the 2020 budget, and we're really pleased to be able to hit the ground running with that position this week.
Thank you, Deputy City Manager. City Attorney Robinson, any announcements?
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. There will be 2 community outreach meetings regarding adult use marijuana. I have to look at my calendar to make sure I got the dates and times correct. The first one is Wednesday of this week, and it is it'll be in the evening or in late afternoon. I'm sorry, from 3 to 5. It'll be in the City Commission chambers. That is really aimed toward people who are already in the industry, although everybody's welcome. But that's going to be the focus of that. We're going to get input in terms of what the city ordinances should look like in going forward in accommodating the commercialization of adult recreational marijuana in the community. The next meeting is next Tuesday. That'll be in the evening from 6:30 to 8, again in the commission chambers on Tuesday the 11th. That is, again, the scope of that is more toward the general public, but again, anybody's welcome. We'll have a presentation giving an overview of what the statute says, what the regulations say, and we'll be asking for input from the community and various questions in terms of where should businesses be located, what are some of the challenges facing neighborhoods and business people getting into the industry, and also what the committees, the city's social equity program should look like. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Attorney Robinson. City Clerk Borling, anything you need to say about the election coming up on March 10th? Or
As a matter of fact, yes. I wanted to just let everyone know that absentee ballots for the March 10th election are now available in the clerk's office. We did a mailing. We've sent out about 2,300 ballots already, and that's to people who had submitted the absentee ballot request form. And so we're well underway with that. Something I did want to note is the look of our absentee ballot envelopes have changed. So the new envelope looks a little more sleek and modern compared to the old kind of orangish, goldenrodish kind of envelopes. So I just want people to be aware that it's going to have a different look, but it's still the same type of ballot inside. One final thing I want to note, because we're getting feedback from people on this is a kind of a different election, being the presidential primary. And for this election, voters can get one of 3 ballots. There's one ballot that has presidential candidates for the Democratic Party, one ballot that has presidential candidates for the Republican Party, and then one ballot for people who don't want to vote in the primary but still want to vote on the CCTA ballot question that was just discussed. And they can get that ballot, just vote the question. The question's also on the presidential candidate ballots. That separation, having different ballots, is by law. Also by law is a requirement that you have to indicate which ballot you want in writing. So that's throwing some people off because they're getting their absentee ballot request form, and on the form they have to select a ballot. That is just for this election only, and their selection does not impact who they can vote for in November. That's been a little bit of a point of confusion. So that selection is just for this election, this presidential primary. It does not impact who you're able to vote for in November. So just wanted to make those points.
Thank you, Clerk Burling. So just the simple fact is you cannot vote in both sides of the primary, right? So you got to choose one or the other.
Correct. They're completely separate ballots, so you
Right.
get one or the other.
Right. Commissioner Hess.
Clerk, when are those forms due?
So the form, in terms of being able to send a form to us and us mail a ballot to you, that was 5 p.m. on the Friday before the election. So for us to be able to mail a ballot out, we have to get that form by 5 p.m. the Friday before the election. In terms of voting in person will happen the Saturday before the election. Will be open from 8 to 4 on that Saturday. Also the day before the election, you can also come in to the clerk's office and get an absentee ballot and vote it. So But for mailing purposes, I do want to give a little caveat, though. There's that legal requirement, but then you also want to think about the logistics. If we're mailing a ballot out on Friday, are you going to be able to get it in time and return it before 8 p.m. on election day? So we really try to work with people on their situation to try to get their request form back in a timely fashion so we can get that ballot out to them as soon as possible.
Yeah, Commissioner Prado.
Clerk Borling, I was wondering also if you could just explain, there are 4 elections on the 2020 calendar year, 2 of which are called primaries. And so just so people don't get confused about the 2 primaries, if you will.
Correct. So this March 10th primary is the first of 2 primaries in the state of Michigan in 2020. This first primary is just for the presidential candidates. In August, there will be another primary election, and that will be for all of the other partisan candidates in partisan offices. So we're talking state representative, U.S. Congress, county commission, things like that. So voters will see again a ballot for a primary election in August. We're also going to have a May election. There's going to be a ballot question. I forget what agency is going to have that question, but there's going to be a ballot question in May, and then of course the presidential election, the general election in November.
One more question for you. So Deputy Shelby Moss was telling me today that you guys are in desperate need of poll workers and election inspectors. And so could you just share how, if somebody would like to sign up to do that, how they go about doing that?
Sure. We're always looking for people to be poll workers. The official term is election inspectors. We're looking for people who, of course, have good customer service skills, because you're having to work with people all day. It's very important that you be able to work with people. In recent years, it's become increasingly important for people to have computer skills, as we have electronic poll books and just the equipment we use, it's computers, so having a comfort level there is helpful. But in terms of a legal requirement, you just have to be a qualified elector of the state. So in other words, you have to live in the state, 18 years of age or older, a U.S. citizen. Those are the basic requirements. In order to apply, we invite people to come in person so that we can explain a little bit about what the job entails. It is a long day. You're there from 6 a.m. until around 9 p.m. or so, 9:30 on election day. So it is a long day. And when you come to the clerk's office, we'll have you fill out an application and talk to you more about what a great job it is. And we really need people. I mean, the people who are the election inspectors are kind of the linchpin. That's where everything comes together. So we have lots of processes. We have our voting equipment, and of course, it all comes together with the people who make it happen on election day.
Thank you, Clerk Borling. Yeah, Commissioner Urban.
I have a question for you, Clerk Borling. Could you clarify that all 3 of the ballots that are available, you only get to have one of them, but on each of those 3 ballots, the transit millage question appears on all 3 of them?
That's correct. The transit millage question appears on all 3 ballots. The ballots that have the candidates, as well as then that ballot that is there's no candidates.
And if a person votes only on the transit millage and abstains from voting on in the presidential primary, whether they had a Republican or a Democrat ballot, that doesn't invalidate the ballot, does it?
No, it does not. So if you get a ballot that does have the candidates on it, either a Republican or Democrat, if you get it and you say, well, I don't want to vote on that side, I just want to vote for the question, there's no penalty for what's called undervoting, meaning not voting for a particular office.
Okay, well, it seems to me that a good advice would be to pick one of the partisan ones, so at least if you change your mind about voting, you at least have a chance. So to vote in the presidential primary rather than getting the ballot that only has that millage question on it. Thank you for complying with the law on that. I know it seems like a bother, but I know you have to do it.
Any other questions for the clerk? Thanks again, Clerk Borrelli. Next is the consent agenda. Deputy City Manager Chamberlain.
Thank you. Item 1 is approval of a change order with Tetra Tech Incorporated for corrosion coupon testing in the amount of $104,500. Second item is approval of a professional services agreement with Prine and Newhoff to provide engineering and design services for the Bank Street Farmers Market project in the amount of $174,000. Third is approval of a contract supplemental and change order with Hoffman Brothers Incorporated for the emergency repair of sanitary sewer infrastructure in the amount of $204,980 and the appropriation of funds from the wastewater emergency reserves for the same amount. Next is approval of a contract with Ferguson Waterworks to provide Neptune water meters in the amount of $600,000. Next is approval of a one-year term contract with Kalamazoo Oil Incorporated for gasoline and diesel fuel for an amount not to exceed $600,000. Next is the first reading of an ordinance to amend Section 38-32 of the Kalamazoo City Code to change the rates charged for water service. Next is the first reading of an ordinance to amend Section 28-73 of the Kalamazoo City Code to change the rate charged for wastewater service. And next is the approval of an affiliation agreement between Western Michigan University and the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety, allowing for Western Michigan University students to complete internships with the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety. And next is approval of acceptance of an easement with Consumers Energy for electrical utility equipment installation at the Station 18 well field. And next is the approval of the appointment of Alyssa Stewart to the Shared Prosperity Kalamazoo Organizing Committee. Next is the approval of the minutes of the City Commission meetings of January 13 and January 21, 2020. And finally, the approval of the purchase of a portion of the property at 1157 Bank Street for the realignment of Bank Street that is part of the Farmers Market Improvement Project. That is all.
Thank you. Commissioners, the requested action is to approve items 1 through 11 and postpone item 12 until February 17th, 2020, and authorize the city manager to sign all documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion? Made by Commissioner Knott.
Support.
Okay. Supported by Commissioner Hess. There we go. Clerk Borrelli, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradle.
Yes, with abstention on item number 8.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. All the items on the consent agenda are approved. We do have an opportunity now for reports. I don't think you have anything else. Is that correct?
Nothing tonight.
Okay. So next on our agenda is an opportunity for citizen comments. Anyone wishing to address the City Commission on any topic should come to the podium, give your name, and whether you live in the city, you'll have 4 minutes to make your comments. And then you can sign in before or afterwards.
Chris Womhoff, 1407 Bryant Street. I just wanted to speak on the water. I know this is what's being called kind of a subtle increase. Like I said, I live on 1407 Bryant. You'll get to see with the census this year, quite a few people in my neighborhood have left the neighborhood since the last 3 8% water increases that were also small. I also looked into the guy that you guys had do your little thing. I watched a live stream of it, and he had a lot more experience in marketing than he did in water. And that's pretty frustrating. I don't know who looked into his history, but a lot more business and not as much water. That sucks. And how much nickel and diming is this going to be? Because I mean, I get why some of those things are going to happen, but a lot of the people downtown are going to continue to have a flat rate that aren't going to see these increases. Why, while it might just be a couple more dollars has been a lot for about half the people on my street. I mean, everybody in my neighborhood's going to continue to lose their homes and be more homeless. And it doesn't seem to matter, and it doesn't seem to stop, because even though we have no money, there's still going to be more breaks for everybody downtown. So I was just wondering, this water hike, can downtown pay for some of this time? Or are they going to continue to get a flat rate, and it's just going to be some more people that it's just a couple dollars too more, and a couple more kids won't make the promise, and maybe a couple more kids that I know become career criminals because they have no hope? I'm just curious. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy City Manager, City Attorney, City Commissioners, and City Clerk. A lot of times I sit in the audience. It's been about, 2 or 3 years I've been coming to most of these. And I like to listen a lot, and every once in a while I like to speak. It's normally very quick, 10, 12 seconds. But I've been running into a few problems with people in the city over the past few years, and it's been getting to a point where it's escalating. I had a job as a security personnel at Soho Apartments, which I was informed by the city police is in the township. Today I spoke to an assistant chief who informed me it was in the city. It's a bit confusing. He said that he was going to, my first couple of days, he was going to put off the paycheck and put it on my next paycheck. I asked if that was okay. I said, yeah, that's fine. The next week, the paycheck didn't come in. He said, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. Something happened. Again, I'd never had a problem getting a paycheck before, so I wasn't desperate for the money. I said that was fine. It was every 2 weeks he paid me. A couple more weeks went by. There was another problem. Okay, this is kind of weird. I don't understand what's going on. I went to the den to get a soda pop. Somebody saw my uniform and they said, have you ever had a problem getting a paycheck? And I was like, actually, I have. It's kind of weird. So I reviewed him on Google, and about half the reviews on Google are 1 stars, and they're talking about how he doesn't pay his employees, how he does all these things. The insurance on the vehicle wasn't current. He had no registration. All these things that I was forced to drive in order to keep my job. Finally, 2 months had gone by. He still didn't pay me. Checks had bounced. He gave me another check, said, this one's good. I called the bank. I said, are there sufficient funds? They said, no. So I said, okay, I'm not going to work for you anymore. You need to pay me. He said, you have one of my tools. You got to bring it back. So I brought it back to Soho Apartments. It was like 11:30 at night. It was dark. He was about 8 foot, I feel like. He looked like a linebacker. He's a big guy, real scary. He was a retired narcotics officer from the city of Detroit in Southfield. I said, you gotta pay me this money. You owe me this money. I got bills I gotta pay. I need this money. He put his hand on a gun. He said, do we have a problem here? I said, nope, I'm going home. I went and spoke to Mr. Anderson at his home. He said he would look into it. That man no longer had a contract at Soho Apartments. I'm not sure if it was because of what Mr. Anderson did as a city commissioner or not. I have no idea. I tried to file a police report for him putting his hand on a gun, and the officers told me that's a civil issue. It's about a paycheck. You need to sue him in court. That happened in November of 2018 or 2017, I forget. It's been a long time. I tried to make this report so many times, it's not even funny. It's not even funny. It's a civil issue. It's not criminal. You can't make that police report. I was offered to be given a misdemeanor for sitting on a park bench in Bronson Park because sitting down is resting, and the city ordinance says you're not allowed to lay down or rest. I tried to file a complaint. It went nowhere. I was offered to be arrested for bringing a service dog in City Hall. What do I do?
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, I'm Ron Zellers. I live in Winchell, and I have two questions for you. About the car wash, what does hold mean? We've heard it's on hold. Is this just so he can get his lawyers going again? That's number one. And number two, the White House that is sitting on that property, I found out was built in 1898, and behind it there is supposedly a trestle from the Civil War. And I'm wondering how we can get that on the historical register. And those are my two questions.
Thank you.
I'm Nehemiah Scudder. I live at 345 North Burdick, apartment number 303. And I have a concern about the people speaking here. In this period that we have supposedly 4 minutes to voice our opinion or whatever. Some people don't sign in, and that means they're anonymous, supposedly. And I think that's a mistake. I believe our city clerk should watch the people speaking and make sure they sign their name and address each time so that they're not anonymous. We have some noted people that come down quite a bit. I know their name, but I won't name names because I might get in trouble. But I believe they should sign in, sign their address like everybody else, and not just be anonymous. Because if they're going to offer an opinion, then they should say who they are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Messer, city resident. As of July 1, 2019, Kalamazoo County finally has a public defender's office. That's great news. So as part of that, this Friday, they will be having their first ever expungement clinic. If anyone who has old criminal convictions that are holding them back from housing, employment, or other things they need to do to get on with their life, come to the Northside Association for Community Development, the NACD, at 612 North Park Street, across Ransom Street from the Park Street Market, this Friday from 2 to 5 p.m. for Kalamazoo County's first ever expungement clinic. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak tonight? All right, seeing no one else, now's the time for commissioner comments. Commissioners, yes, Commissioner Urban.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to respond to one of Mr. Sellers' questions regarding the property at the corner of Stadium and Drake. The fact that there is remains of a railroad trestle on that property is something that the Historic Preservation Commission is aware of. To check on what can be done to get that on the register, I suggest you attend their next meeting. It's normally they meet on the second Tuesday of the month in this building, either in the community room or up on the third floor. I'll try to talk to you later and give you more details about how to be there and learn firsthand what can be done, and maybe you could help them. It's an interesting piece of property there. The rails are long gone, and where the trestle was is what runs through there is a stormwater overflow from the parking lot across the street. So anyway, that's just kind of an aside. So I hope you'll follow up with that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban. Commissioner Knott.
Sure, thank you. So first I'll do a shout out to the 4020 students that made your way down here tonight. Thank you. And then I guess just to clarify, a question for either DM Chamberlain or Director Baker. Could we have just a quick response to the flat rate that the citizen addressed a few minutes ago?
Sure, absolutely. Director Baker, if we could just clarify the rates that the gentleman mentioned about, we do have various rates for different types of classes, commercial, industrial, residential, but it was mentioned by the previous gentleman that there was a flat rate for downtown Kalamazoo, and could you clarify if that's correct?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy City Manager. Commissioners, in your packets, you have the ordinance. There's separate ordinances for both water and wastewater. Both of these ordinances, I'm going to speak just to water initially, and then I'll talk a little bit about wastewater. Both of these ordinances call out specific rate classes. They'll say like Schedule A, Schedule B, Schedule D. Those all call out an initial charge, which is basically a readiness to serve charge or a meter charge, and that's based on the size of the meter. You'll look there and it'll say like 5/8 to 3/4, 1 inch, 1 inch and a quarter, inch and a half, 2 inch, 3 inch. So your readiness to serve charge, which is your base rate, increases as your meter size increases. So the bigger meter you have, the more you're going to pay. The next component of your rates is what's called the commodity charge. The commodity charges are the same through each customer class. So residential in city is a customer class. The commodity is the same for all that. There's also another customer class for commercial in city, commercial out city. So those commodity charges are all lined up in there. So essentially, while within a class, your commodity is the same, as you increase meter size, your cost will go up. So you take your meter size fee, add that to your rate times your read, and then apply that into your customer class, for example, like a monthly read or a quarterly read. We do not have any water customers that are flat rate. There's not a separate downtown rate, and quite honestly, most facilities that are going to be what we consider commercial or industrial, if you'll look at that meter size, you can see they're paying significantly more. Additionally, you're charged on what you use. Commercial customers quite often would use more water than residential. Anything that goes through that meter is charged on. Now let me talk a little bit about wastewater rates. There is a wastewater flat rate for customers that do not have city water. They might be out in the township. We may have some of those in the city. These would be customers on a well, but they're connected to the sanitary sewer. We have no way to meter their usage, so we put them on a what we call a sanitary sewer flat rate. And those are only for residential customers, and that flat rate would be the same for all those residential customers. So if you have any further questions, you can look at those rate packets, and then I can also provide example utility bills if anybody would like to see something like that.
Commissioner, yeah, any questions? Okay, other commissioners?
May I ask a follow-up question? Something that might clarify things a little bit. This commodity rate, do all the commodity rate, do all the commodity rates have an increase in them?
Yes, everything has an increase. So
Okay.
there's an increase in the meter charge, and there's an increase in the commodity charge.
Okay.
So everything went up from 19 to 2020 proposed.
So I hope that answers the fairness question adequately. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a couple other quick questions. Tonight's the hearing for it, so we're actually voting at our next meeting, right? Setting the date for that, or it's the first reading. But just that said, just a little clarification also, just quickly, why we're rates proposed to increase. Can we increase them because we have a shortfall, you know, in our public safety department budget? We need to raise some extra money there and pay for that. Just a couple things about that.
Yeah, so just some basic water fund. Both water and wastewater funds are enterprise funds. By law, we are not allowed to take water fund dollars and bring that over to general fund. By law, water cannot pay for public safety. We can't buy a new fire truck with proceeds from the water department. That's kind of the basic concept of the protection that's in the enterprise funds. These are essentially private utilities. And being private utilities, the only source of revenue that we have for the water and sewer funds are the revenues collected from the ratepayers, and that's based on consumption. So the more you use, the higher your bill is going to be. That's all of our revenue comes from. Some major rate drivers, when we talk about drinking water, we've got a very proactive lead service replacement program. We've got a fund, that's funded by ratepayers. We're looking at a very robust cast iron main replacement program. We've talked about a lot of improvements at the stations for automation and some of the chemical feed systems. Also talking about storage tanks, and then continued PFAS response that's occurring in some of our township areas. Again, all that capital is funded through ratepayers.
Commissioner Prado?
Just had a question as well. This was actually from when I visited Dr. Hoffman's poli-sci class as well. One of the students in the class had asked the question, what's the best way to get the most up-to-date, water testing results on, the website or just, Google searching or whatnot, if they're curious about, learning more about that?
Yeah, so every year we issue a report, and that's called a Consumer Confidence Report, and that report details the highest of any result that we have collected, as well as an average of all results collected. So we're out every single day collecting water quality data, and then we issue those reports on an annual basis that provide in-depth summary of what's happening within that drinking water system. Those reports are available online. You can go to the City Kalamazoo's website, go into Public Services, go into the Water Division, and you'll see a tag in there, Consumer Confidence Report or Water Quality Data. Click on that and they'll give you the 2018 report. We will be issuing the 2019 report in July of 2020.
Any other questions for Director Baker? Thank you so much for coming up. Very helpful.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Other commissioners, comments? Commissioner Hess.
Speaking of wastewater, I had the great fortune of touring the wastewater treatment plant, and I want to thank Director Baker and his staff for being so gracious. And I would encourage anyone who hasn't done this or been part of a group to tour our water facilities. They're fascinating. I learned so much about everything that we do and how just important it is to the life of the city. So, and just amazing gratitude for their work. And in this first week of Black History Month, I want to applaud us for hiring a Director of Inclusion and Equity here at the city. Congratulations, Dorla.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Anyone else? Commissioner Prado.
Quick second, if I could indulge. My two boys did not make it to the swearing-in ceremony, and so they have been patiently waiting here for the last hour. But my boys Simon and Lincoln and my wife Erin are here tonight, and they were unable to be at the swearing-in. So thank you, boys, for sticking out tonight so you could see Daddy in action during a commission meeting. Wanted to also give a shout out and congratulate Dorla as well on your appointment to be the first Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, not just the newest, or you are the first, which is a great deal. Also wanted to just lift up and shout out to, Rebecca Kick, if you haven't seen in the last Encore magazine, this is what the cover looks like. but there is a section covering Rebecca Kick and all the awesome work that she's doing. I just think this speaks volumes about the great talent that the city hires, and when you have great people, you hope desperately that you hold on to those awesome people, but if you get a chance, pick up this issue, learn a little bit more about our Director of Community Planning and Economic Development in the issue. So Rebecca, congratulations on that article as well. Just wanted to kind of lift up a little bit about what Clerk Borling was talking about our 4 elections coming up here. We have 2 primaries. Obviously, the next one coming up on March 10th, which has pretty major implications, but wanted to remind people as well that the 2016 election in Michigan was decided by 0.23% percentage points. So, please let that sink in and remind folks that it is so vitally important that we encourage our neighbors and our friends to please exercise their right to vote and do all we can to try to help people exercise that right. Also wanted to really quickly just lift up Public Media Network. They have introduced a new series called Conversations for Change. They had their first one here this last Thursday. Supposedly the episode's going to air here pretty soon, but they had Stephanie Hoffman, Matt Hollander, Ben Lando, had a great conversation about affordable housing and homelessness. Encourage folks to check that out. Their next one is going to be on prisoner reentry and recidivism, and our former Commissioner Don Cunha is going to host that episode. So please check those out. You'll probably see some of the people around this dais here hosting or being a part of those panels here in the coming months, but definitely worth checking that out, and hats off to Public Media Network for doing that great work. So that's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Praedel. Anyone else? Vice Mayor Griffin.
Yeah, so I just want to remind folks, we've had some good reminders of the meetings that we have coming up this week, but just to add to that for the folks in Edison, on Wednesday from 6 to 7:30 at the Washington Square Branch Library, 1244 Portage. There will be some conversations in regards to zoning, and it'll be that area on Portage between Stockbridge and Crosstown, so please make sure you can get out to that. And it was already lifted up about the expungement clinic, and also on Wednesday from 7 to 8:30 at the Kalamazoo Public Library downtown at the Van Dusen Room. We're going to be kicking off the 3-year-long historic resources inventory that's been talked about a little bit, but you can go down and get some more information and volunteer to sign up. I also want to congratulate Dorla on your recent appointment, and just that serves as a great reminder to folks while we have days, weeks, and months that celebrate various things, that this is an all the time 24/7 365 work that needs to be done. So it's great to get those 28 days, but this is every day, all day. So you have my support, and just definitely looking forward to the work to come out of this new venture.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Griffin. Okay, seeing no other comments. 29 days, I think, this month. Get an extra one more day. All right. Couple quick things. So mentioned meetings that are coming up. I want to mention a meeting that we did have, and that was last week, the same evening, I think that was Thursday, when you were hosting the conversation about housing. There was, this room had representatives from Eagle here for the hearing on air quality related to this investment that's happening in Kalamazoo. It's a fairly long hearing, lightly attended, but there were some folks here asking some questions, including the chair of our Environmental Concerns Committee. And they were talking about emissions and this investment that Graphics Packaging is making on that side of town, and how they will be monitoring that and that sort of thing. So that information is going out. It was an official public hearing that collected comments in a defined way and provided some explanations. So that was here. Appreciate that work that Eagle's doing. Tonight, for the first time in this kind of unicloud kind of life we've been living here in the last month or so, we can actually see the moon and the stars in the sky. And the full moon is coming up on February 9th. That's Sunday. That full moon in February, a lot of people refer to as the snow moon. And it's also called the shoulder to shoulder around the fire moon by the Wishram people of the Pacific Northwest. And I think that is sort of an appropriate thought and a way to think about that. And I'd like to close out with a quote from Sojourner Truth, talking about the moon. "Those are the same stars, and that is the same moon, that look down upon your brothers and sisters, and which they see as they look up to them, though they are ever so far away from us and from each other." We are adjourned.